Hi friends. So about a week ago I finished listening to the audiobook of Becoming by Michelle Obama, and I quite enjoyed it. So I would like to share a few thoughts with you. Because I don't have the physical book with me, I don't feel like this would be a comprehensive review, but this is just a few things that I really like and think are praiseworthy about the book, and hopefully they're things that may convince you to read it, because I think it's a great book that most everyone should read. Actually, first off, before I forget, I listened to this on audiobook, which is narrated by Michelle Obama herself. And I've already mentioned this a few times. I think that memoirs it's just always better to listen to the audiobook if they're narrated by the author. It really infuses the flavor of that person into their own book. I like it. Anyway, so I would really recommend that, of course. As for things I liked about this, I think the first thing I'd have to say is just Michelle Obama herself. Before reading this book, I didn't know a lot about the Obamas. I mean, you know, they were the first family, and so I knew a little bit about them, but not on the personal level. I didn't know sort of their backstory or their childhoods or anything like that. So I know exactly what to expect about, you know, what I was going to learn about Michelle Obama's life, but I was very excited. And after reading this book, I am a fan of Michelle Obama. She is really cool. I think that really her personality and her own voice in this book is just what I probably liked the best. She's very intelligent, but is not pretentious. She's straightforward, and she's honest, and she's open and warm, and that really comes through in the tone of her book. Along with that, although the events of her life are something that are very different and very much in contrast to the experience of my own life, regardless of that, I felt like her book was so relatable, and in many ways because it just was so human. The next thing that I really liked about this book really took me by surprise, because when I picked this up, I knew it was going to be about her life, but I was most excited to hear about the life as the first family. I just thought it'd be really fascinating to hear what that was about, like what that was like. But the chapters or the topics in this book that I enjoyed hearing Michelle Obama talk about the most were when she talked about marriage and motherhood, which is not what I was expecting when I picked up the book. And I'm not sure exactly why these really stuck out to me so much, but I felt that they were so unromanticized, but like pure and beautiful. I just really, really liked it. For context, I'm not married and I have no kids, so I don't know why this was like so really what I took away from the book, but I really admire that. If I had to like give Michelle Obama a characteristic in reference to the way that she talks about marriage and motherhood, I would call her proactively and aggressively committed to those relationships and to, you know, marriage and motherhood. And I loved that. I loved the way that she talks about just the necessary sacrifices to make things work. It's not overly romanticized either. She's talking about her husband and just like the role she was sort of forced to step into by the nature of him pursuing politics and becoming the president, which required her to give up her own career and to, you know, work in the capacity of being the first lady, even though she wasn't interested in politics and didn't really ever want him to go into politics. She was more committed to her relationship with him, and not just in a one-sided way that she needed to make all the sacrifices to accommodate him. She was, in her being proactive about her relationship, meant that they went to couples counseling when she felt that they needed it, and she communicated her needs in an assertive way, and I just love that. Again, it's not glamorizing marriage or motherhood, but it's just being real, and because of that I think it's more praiseworthy and admirable in her perspective on both marriage and motherhood. I loved the way that she talked about being a mom, and I also loved the way that this became clearly what sort of transcended into and motivated her initiatives as First Lady. before getting to the presidency, her attitude towards her kids and just the dynamics of what it costs to be a woman, to be a mother, what it physically requires of you and the sacrifices it requires of you. I loved the way that she discusses that in her book, but then and how aggressive she was towards like needing to be there and meet the needs of her kids, but then taking that into the presidency, or into her husband's presidency and being in the White House. I loved the way that she then adapted to assessing and meeting her children's needs in that circumstance, but also how it sort of transcended into, maybe I'm really over glamorizing this, but it felt like she took on being like the mother of all of the children of the United States. Like all of her initiatives were very concerned with children's health and well-being and defending their needs against corporations, and especially when it came to the physical health of children. And I loved that. I loved hearing the backstory about where her passion for these initiatives came from. As a final note, I think that maybe this really overlaps with some of the things I've already said, but I felt like the overall tone of this book was one that was just celebrating things that are good and wonderful in our world. And even though in a very show not tell way, Michelle Obama uses her story to maybe draw attention to some of the ways that our current political system and society in the United States allows for minorities to slip through the cracks in a lot of ways. I think that she overall comes away with or projects a message of hope and the capacity to work towards better things, and that we have like every reason to expect and to work towards and to seek on a personal and individual level as well as on a broad scale through politics and through running for office, that we can change our world and we can make it a better place. We can make it a place where more people feel safe and feel welcome and have opportunities and have just are standing on equal grounds in every sense of the word. I was interested in this before I picked it up. This book, I would say, is not extremely political. It's sort of political by association because Michelle Obama was the wife of the president. By association, there's definitely a lot about government in the book, but I wouldn't say it's extremely political in the sense that it feels like it's pushing a narrative. To some small extent, I think it could. You could make an argument for that, but I would say that it's more a matter of show, not tell, in the sense that her life and her husband's life give context for a lot of his political platforms. So when you read about their lives, it makes sense why those were some of his initiatives and objectives in his presidency. But it's not like she's using this book to continue to perpetuate and to fight for some of those initiatives. Like, I don't feel like that's what she's doing. It just doesn't feel as overt as that. My point in saying all of this is that wherever you may feel like you fall on the current left and right, very binary political spectrum that is currently taking over our political space in the United States, wherever you fall on that, I feel like you would enjoy this book. It doesn't feel over the top political, and it just feels like it's authentically about someone's life. All of the tidbits about experiences living in the White House and what it was like, even just on a technical level, the way that things work, even like little bits about the layout of the house and things like that, that was really interesting. How a campaign slowly escalates into, presidential caliber, how all the technicalities of that, all that, like, I found that so interesting. On a technical level, it was an interesting book. On an emotional level, it was a relatable book. It was also inspiring and very captivating. I found her writing style so comfortable and easy. I really, really liked it. Again, I would recommend the audiobook because it was just phenomenal. But I think that anyone would like this book. I give it a solid 5 stars, and I'm sure that it will be one of my favorite books from 2019. If you've read this book and you also loved it, or if you have any thoughts on it, share them down below. So that's it for today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in a future video. Bye.